Hello, I'm Andreas Curley, Local Council President for Council 21 in Washington, D.C.
Hi everybody, I'm Ken Diaz, Local Council President in New York.
Ken and I decided to put a little video together and go over some really important points that we feel have been addressed, but we wanted to do it together to give you a different perspective on how things are going and where we're at and where we have to go from here.
As we all know, the merger closed on October 1st, and we'll be working ourselves towards a representational election between the IAM, the Machinist Union, and the Association of Flight Attendants.
So as we get towards this representational vote, we have to be very wary that we're not making a decision based on who has the best contract today. Because in essence, we are not going to be voting on necessarily a contract, whether it's the machinist contract for Continental or whether it's the bankruptcy imposed contract that we have here at United with AFA, but rather what we're talking about and debating as a group, as a membership between us and our Continental brothers and sisters, is the fact that we have to choose between two unions.
And I think the fair debate regarding the two unions is the priorities that each union places on what is contained in a contract for the combined workforce as we go along. I think there has to be a little bit of the history of both airlines discussed, because I think everyone has to understand that our sisters and brothers at Continental, they endured what we're going through the last decade. They endured during all of the 80s and early 90s. So we've both been two groups that have given up so much, and now it's time that we're going to be the leading airline in the world to have the leading contract for this combined group once the representational election is settled.
And what we also need to understand is we really have more commonality, I think, than we realize.
I agree with that.
We have a group of flight attendants that are very interested in the flexibilities that the Continental contract provides, and I know for a fact, because I have friends at Continental that I worked with until I left in '95, that are interested in some of the work roles that we enjoy here at United. That's one of the reasons why I left Continental, and I think that we have to understand each other's histories, like you said, and understand where we want to go together as a group, because in the end, that's where we're going to be. We're going to be negotiating a joint contract at some point together, all 25,000 of us, and we have to understand that we are going to be getting input from not only the United flight attendants, again, but also the Continental flight attendants after a representation.
And I know I can speak for Andreas and the other presidents at the Association of Flight Attendants. We want this merger to work. We want this new United Airlines to be successful. But in order to be successful, they have to get serious at the negotiating table, and they have to come up with not only finishing up our Section 6 negotiations here at United, but when we get into the single contract, this combined workforce of 24,700 has to be part of that new United Airlines. And by doing that, I mean, we have to get the best of both of these contracts and then some to compensate for all that we've given up over the years to make these two companies successful, that they even entertained having this merger.
There's this impression when some of us look at the social networking sites and the conversations that we have on the jump seat with each other, and the conversations that the Continental flight attendants have with each other as well, that if they lose the representation vote and everyone is AFA, that they'll lose their voice. And that's absolutely not the case. What will happen is, if the Association of Flight Attendants is successful in this representation vote, Cleveland, Newark, and Houston will go through an election process, just like we do here at United, and those officers that get elected in those bases will be Continental flight attendants. So they will already know the history of what you've gone through. They already know the history of your favorites as far as what's in your contract. And they will be obligated to represent you at the table at this new MEC, which is the Master Executive Council, which is made up of all of the presidents, and they will be your voice at the table, ensuring that your issues are addressed and that your priorities, more specifically, are addressed, not only through surveys, but through conversations that they have with you every day.
Correct. And when we work towards the single contract, that's taking the ideas of the total combined workforce and coming up with this new contract once we get to that step in the process. But first we have to get through the representational election. And after we go through the representational election, then we'll have to decide on this seniority integration.
So the bottom line is, why does AFA have this policy in place, this black and white written policy in our Constitution and bylaws, which governs everything that we do at our union? And before I add that, though, I want to make something perfectly clear. Even though our banner is AFA/CWA, everything that we do within our union is autonomous from CWA. There is absolutely no input as far as our Constitution and bylaws or anything that we accomplish either on the local level or at the board.
In AFA, every decision is made by flight attendants because who knows our issues better than flight attendants? If we became part of the machinist union, we'd represent 2% of their membership. Part of the reason we are with CWA is they gave us 100% autonomy to decide the issues for flight attendants. And every elected position at all levels of our union are flight attendants. And I think that speaks volumes about our union. And that's why we have so many committees, going from government affairs, which pushes legislation on Capitol Hill, to our EAP committees, professional standards committees, our safety and health committees, our benefits committees. These are all parts of our union. Combine that with scheduling and reserve committees with flight attendant input so that we can positively impact our lives as flight attendants. And part of our negotiating strategy when we negotiate contracts is not only to have compensation issues, but benefits and quality of life work rule protections so that all of those have equal importance. A simple example is our benefits section, which is section 33 of our contract, is 24 pages of negotiated benefits that we've negotiated through the years. These are important priorities, and it's not company policy that sets that. It's negotiated in our contract, and that is a big difference that I see in a machinist union contract compared to an AFA negotiated contract.
We are under no illusion that the Association of Flight Attendants is a perfect union.
It's a work in progress. That's how I like to say it all the time, and that's why we all got involved in this union, to make that contribution, to make this a better union. And I think we're moving in that direction, because let's face it, differences of opinion and debate is what comes up with good decisions, and that's how we move forward, making our union stronger.
Back to the seniority integration issue real quick. Our policy cannot be any more clear. And the policy came about because of the Pan Am acquisition years ago. And what happened was, after that acquisition occurred, there was this outrage by the membership on how seniority was integrated. So at the board of directors meeting, all of the local presidents came up with an agenda item, and the policy was changed to probably the most fair system in seniority integration history, I think. So the bottom line is, whether you're AFA or you're not AFA, if you merge with an AFA carrier, which is exactly what you have done at Continental with United, you will be merged in by your bidding seniority, or more commonly known as date of hire. It can't be any more clear than that.
Andreas, if I can add, because a lot of the conversation comes up, but what about the McCaskill-Bond Amendment? And for those of you that don't know, the McCaskill-Bond Amendment, AFA helped craft the language for that amendment and helped get it into law. And that was basically to set a floor or a minimum so that a union couldn't come in and put another union's seniority underneath theirs at the bottom of the seniority. And as long as there was a fair and equitable union policy regarding seniority integration, that law does not supersede AFA's merger policy. And if AFA wins this representational election, and we are the union representing all 24,700 flight attendants, we will use the AFA seniority integration. And to my continental counterparts, I say to you that not everyone is going to be happy how seniority is integrated on both sides of the picture, but the fairest way, if we really talk this out and debate it, is whatever your bidding seniority is today, that's what your bidding seniority will be like at the new United Airlines. There is no fairer way than that. And of course there has to be the issues worked out about, we start training with our seniority the first day of training, and I gather some of you started on your last day of training. That can all be worked out, but it is the fairest way when you're dealing with a group this size, and it's been proven that before. I mean, let's use the American Eagle situation. I mean, that was 4 airlines represented by 3 different unions when they merged, and AFA won the representational election, and then they used their policy of seniority integration to merge the seniority list. So there's not a legal challenge to, it's already been proven that our policy is fair and equitable.
I believe, and Ken believes, that we have so much commonality between each other that we will be successful in, at some point, negotiating a merged contract. And let's face it, guys. United and Continental just posted a $800 million profit.
Profit this past quarter.
Our new CEO, Jeff, makes over $900,000 a year, I believe. Mike Bonds, our Director of Labor Relations, got a pay raise at $600,000 a year, and that's pretty damn good for new hires here at United Airlines, I think.
I think employees on both sides of the former Continental Airlines and United Airlines, we have given up so much over the last 2 decades that it's time that we're compensated for the value that we're worth. And if we're going to be the leading airline, then we have to have the leading contract for both of these groups going forward. And I really, truly feel that AFA is the right choice in this election, because we're going to take the opinions of everyone, and I mean everyone, all 24,700 members, to come up with our negotiating priorities for a single contract when we get to that point.
The leadership of this union is comprised of flight attendants.
Our MEC level, for those that may not understand the structure, the MEC is comprised of the president of every single local, which is a flight attendant elected by their peers. And that's the decision-making body as you go into each airline, because AFA in general is close to 52,000 members. When something happens on Capitol Hill, that phone rings, and it's to the Association of Flight Attendants, because who knows our issues better than flight attendants?
We're all flight attendants. We're all here fighting the fight together to ensure that we have a future at this new United Airlines, this great airline that we're going to build together. We will not play into, divide and conquer like the company wants us to. That's not going to happen. We have an internal fight right now. It's like stepkids being married into a new family. But don't mess with the family, United Airlines, because at the end, I know that we'll stand together.
And I agree that. And I can speak for Andreas, and I know I can speak for the other AFA presidents here at United. We want this merger to work, and we want it to work for all 24,700 flight attendants. So I'm just asking you to let's keep the debate civil. We can debate issues, but please, as flight attendants, let's all stick together in solidarity, because we are one strong voice for our profession.
We thank you for listening, and we hope we
get to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming by.